are so excited to have you guys joining us for a very important conversation. We have been seeing all the stuff happening in our world, and we wanted to bring in some experts to come and talk with us. I've got Pastor Leah here. Together we get to lead the NextGen team here at Christ Church. Also joining us are Mason and my girl Dela, and these are some of our NextGen leaders. So we specifically asked them to come and help us have this conversation.
Yeah, so what's happening in the world is no secret to any of us. We all are living through this racial injustice, this racial tension that's now really been brought to the forefront. It's been brought in front of everyone. And so I actually sent a text out to about 12 of our students, different genders, different races, and asked them just to share their thoughts with us, because I think a lot of times people think our students aren't talking about this. Our kids are maybe unaware. Maybe the news is running, but they're not really paying attention. And so we actually wanted to dive into a conversation about how do we teach the next generation to embrace this tension. And so we're taking some of their thoughts, some of their questions. We've added some of our own to really set up this conversation for what does it look like for the next generation, and how do we lead them as adults, as parents. Some of you are parents watching. Some of you are adults that love kids and volunteer with us. Some of you are grandparents, aunts, uncles. Some of you are just adults that know kids, and all of us can play a role in helping shape the next generation in this.
I love it too, because some of the questions, they're questions that we wonder, things that we've been trying to figure out and to navigate ourselves. And so to hear some of these things even coming from our students, it's cool to hear their thought processes through this. So I say let's just dive right into it. Does that sound good, Leah?
Yeah. I think the first thing that we should really hit is, what is the importance in actually embracing tension? I know that word, embracing or tension can sometimes have almost a negative connotation, but what is the value that brings?
We're turning to you guys here at this.
I think sometimes with tension, it does have a bad sound to it. But I mean, like you said earlier about the tent, it's all about, talking. We have to talk first off. And if we don't talk, the tension is going to mount and mount and mount until it explodes. Yeah. That's just how it is, period, point blank. No matter what it's about. It could be about, little Timmy lied about this. And little Timmy keeps lying, and it's going to keep piling. The tension's going to get bigger on it. And eventually he'll get caught. So, I mean, that's basically how I see it. So tension has to be talked out. And it has to be talked out by more than just one person. So if I'm talking and you're not listening or not understanding, it has to be a two-way conversation.
I know, Dela, when we were talking, we had a great conversation with Dela earlier in this week, and you were even talking about embracing the tension.
Yeah.
And that tension isn't necessarily a bad thing.
It's not negative. And I think just prefacing the conversation with tension, it gives us permission to know this is not going to be easy. This is not going to be pretty. Yeah, like, this is going to be hard, but man, it's going to be worth it. Like, and it just gives us, we already just started off the back. This is going to be hard. This is going to be awkward. Feelings are going to be hurt. You're going to have to swallow some things that maybe you haven't had to chew on. You know what I mean? Like, we're throwing out terms like white privilege that have been a part of my life since I was born are now in front of, a white America. Yeah. And so that is hard to chew on. Yeah. But when we started with, hey, we're going to embrace this tension. We're not going to slide it under the table.
Yeah. We're putting it on the table. We've been doing that for too long.
It's time out for that. Yeah. So it's going to be hard. So I just think it's great that, like, this is the title of this. I think it's great that we just continue to use that word, tension. We're going to pull, we're going to do that. But guess what? We're going to link arms and we're going to walk forward together in spite of the tension.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's so good. That's so good. I think what you're saying, like, we have to embrace it. Mm-hmm. We can't avoid it. We can't act like it's not there.
Right.
Acknowledging it isn't enough. Because I think we could all say at some point in life we've acknowledged that this is happening.
Right.
But it's different to embrace it. Because when you embrace someone, you have to be close. Mm-hmm. You got to be close enough to hug. Yeah. You can't do that from afar. And the only way we embrace tension is when we sit down in moments like this where we can go, hey, we're going to talk. Yeah. And it's okay that there's tension. There's a difference between healthy tension and unhealthy tension. Like Mason was saying, that steam pot starts boiling. Yeah. Eventually it's going to blow if you don't push the valve and let some of that out.
You have to have a healthy tension, if, let's say in a church, if you're just saving people but not discipling people, that's messed up.
Yeah.
Like, you got to do both.
Yep.
There's got to be a healthy tension between evangelism and discipleship. Because if you just lean too far into one direction, you're missing out on the other side.
Yeah.
And that's what we really want to do in this conversation is we want to say, okay, how can we find that healthy spot in the middle? Because if we lean too far this way or lean too far this way, we know that's not healthy. Right. And we see as our world is just more divided and everybody's just setting in on their own ways. It's gotten us to this spot already, and it's a bad spot.
Yeah.
So we want to find that healthy tension, like you were saying.
Yeah. So here's, I think, a question a lot of people have. They may look at their own lives and feel like, I'm not prejudiced. My kids aren't prejudiced. Like, I'm not racist. I don't have that, in me. So why should I talk to them about it? If they're not experiencing that, they're not showing that, they're not feeling that, why should I talk to my kids about this?
I think there's a term that I love that's out right now. There's a difference between being racist and being anti-racism, and so, and it goes back to what I talked about earlier, white privilege. You can be an amazing person raised in an amazing household, but if you're born a white male, you're walking in some privilege. Whether it just is what it is.
Yeah.
So there is almost, and Leah, you kind of you were hinting towards this earlier, there's an ownership. When we use the word tension, there's an ownership behind it. So it's not enough to just be like, well, I'm not racist. Okay, maybe you're not racist. I would put my money on the table that there's some bias there from all of us. Any individual that because I've been called out in the midst of all this. I'm like, oh, I got some thoughts like that. You know what I mean? But even if you are perfect and you don't have those thoughts, white privilege is real. Any privilege is real, right?
Yeah.
And so, whether or not you feel like you're actively doing that, because you're walking in that, there's some ownership. There's a part that you have to play. Yeah. So
she's right about that. And also we have to understand that if we don't talk to our kids about it, and if we don't talk to our kids about, for darn sure somebody else
will.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you want to give them the best information you can give them, otherwise the streets will.
Yep.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not a good thing, and a lot of times it's not a good thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I feel totally, I know this is what it is, and this is just how I'm gonna say this is how I feel. Racism is so taught, and it's handed down. I don't feel that. I feel like that people, there's people who have hate in them, and then there's people who are taught hate. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that when you're being taught something, oh, well, these people only do this. These people eat this. These people, that's the stereotype is taught to them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's another thing that we might hopefully talk about later.
Yeah.
And as you're talking really about like the white advantages that I've gotten to enjoy, it really has opened my eyes, because while I wasn't a rich, my dad was a social worker. We weren't rolling in the dough by any means. I didn't view myself, I've got amazing parents and a great family, but I didn't view myself as having any kind of white privilege. And yet now, as I'm seeing it through a different set of eyes, I am seeing, oh my gosh, when I got pulled over, I never had to worry about anything.
Yeah. But see, you see it.
I see it now. I'm seeing it more now.
You know what I'm saying? You see it. There's people who do not see it.
But I'll be honest.
Or refuse. Say it again.
I didn't
refuse to. Exactly.
I didn't see it all of my adult life even.
Right.
I would have said, no, are you kidding me? I worked hard and I have worked hard.
Right.
But at the same time, I've had a lot of advantages that other people haven't had.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Something that I will bring up even for Black people that are like white privilege. Okay, I try to help like our people understand this is why they're having a hard time digesting that.
Exactly.
Because I have 2-parent household privilege. I walk in that every day.
Right.
And that's something people don't want to
good.
talk about.
Yes.
I have the fact
true.
that my mom was able to pick me up from school put me ahead of my classmates there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Little stuff is so subtle. It's subtle things.
Right.
2-parent household, stay-at-home mom privilege. You know what I mean? Like there is so much like white privilege is one of them.
That's good.
It's a big one. But in order to grasp the heaviness of it, you got to look at your own life. There's if we want to get real, there's attractiveness privilege. Like there is.
There is.
Pretty good at a lot of things. I know.
So I think that helps.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
You're right about
Like
that.
we're in America.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's even just being an American privilege.
Oh, come on. Because people don't like to talk about that. Poverty in America. I remember this lady I used to work for when I was younger. She was from Ecuador. She said, she would call me Dela. That's not my name. But she would be like, Dela, y'all don't know poverty in America. The poorest person in America, you can go get a free, and I'm not trying to like, yes, it is hard being, in poverty in America. But y'all, the fact that you can get a free meal in America when other people are saying that is American privilege.
It's American privilege. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think, and maybe we can kind of go this route with it. There's a vein as well with parenting that you want to protect your kids. You want to protect your kids. You want to protect their innocence. You want to protect them. I've seen this going around, like, you can't be colorblind, right? You can't be colorblind. We all know, we can all see, unless you actually are colorblind. But they want to keep their kids from like differentiating that difference between people. But some of their heart would be, I want to protect my kid. I want to protect their innocence. By having this conversation, are we removing that innocence if we're having it like, is there too young of an age to begin this conversation? Because I think some parents are concerned, like, am I taking something from them when they realize that people are, hurting other people because of the color of their skin?
I can't say that there is an age restriction on it. Because I remember being in kindergarten and being called some stuff I shouldn't have been called. So I mean, I know for us, we taught at a young
because we don't have the choice.
Exactly.
And it goes back to the choice.
Yes.
That goes back to we don't have the choice.
Exactly.
Like if I don't teach my 4-year-old before my 3-year-old has experienced racism.
Right.
So I don't have a choice. My girl, as a minority, is going to look at another little girl before I'm ready to have the conversation or not. And ask me, why is my hair not like that? Why can't I have blue eyes and blonde hair? Well, honey, you don't want blue eyes and blonde hair because this is how God made. So we don't have that choice. So true. Is there a time that's too early? No, because again, it goes back to being an anti-racism.
So how do they then, or how does someone, because I hear what you're saying, like you didn't have a choice, right? But other cultures, they may have that choice because of the different privileges we've talked about. How do they then, step into that conversation? Because, from their vantage point, their fears are real. Like their kids haven't experienced what your kids have. And that's not fair, but that's their world. So how can we help parents that are watching this go, man, I want to help my kid understand this? Because I think sometimes we think, or I've heard other people go, hey, my kid's great. Like we have all different kinds of races and cultures around us, so they can't fathom that this is happening. But that also means they're not aware that it's happening. So how can we bridge that gap and help bring awareness while still, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense, my question, but how do we help them step towards that?
I think there's levels to it with everything. So when I think about sex and I think about, you can children, but like Mason said, the streets will teach them if we do not. In the streets will not teach my child about sex. They will not.
And then let me say this too. I think parents, they wait too long to have these conversations, thinking, "Oh, my kid's not going to know about it." And whether it's sex, pornography, social media, bullying, all of those things, you need to have those conversations a lot earlier than you think you do.
And there's levels to it, right? Like when you're having a sex conversation with a 6-year-old, you ain't pulling out all the stops, right? Like you're not. And I think it's the same thing with racism. And there are books that are like, and we really need a link. There's a list but there are books to be read with your children that just talk about them being an ally, even at 4. Kids understand that.
That's true.
They understand that. Listen, Sally is sad. Go sit with her. We are the family that sits with the sad kid. We are the family that pulls the kid that is not on the slide with us. We are the family that says, when our friends tell us, let's leave her over here. No, we don't play that in our household. Like you just take a we stance as a family. This is what we do. This is what we believe. And so you can teach kids to be allies really young, in my opinion.
Definitely.
I'll even tell you guys, last night, I decided to have a conversation with Kinsey and Creighton. And so it was bedtime and we're closing the end of the day and we're getting ready to pray. And I said, hey, before we do anything else, we need to pray for Mr. George. and his family, because they're all really sad. And a lot of people are hurt and frustrated at everything that happened. And Creighton immediately chimes up, what happened? And I said, well, Mr. George got hurt really bad. Did he die? Yeah, buddy, he did. Who hurt him? Did a robber hurt him? I was like, no, buddy. It was someone that was in disguise as a good guy. Oh, they tricked him. And he thought he was a good guy, but he was really, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah. And then what I went on to do was, as I'm having this conversation with, again, a 3 and a 5-year-old, I said, you know, people oftentimes, they're so mad because of things like the color of their hair, the color of the skin, the way they talk, the way they look. I said, wouldn't it be so sad if someone made fun of daddy because he's got hairy arms? And if people were calling me names and being all mean? I said, those are things, God made us these ways, and we should be excited about these things instead of pointing them out. Yeah. And just having that's a way you can start to have a conversation with a 3 and a 5-year-old. Yeah. You know, it's not that I had to dive in immediately and talk about, you know, all the in-depth stuff, but I can do it at their level.
I love that.
And I'm excited to have these conversations as they continue, because you can't just have one conversation and expect they got it. All right, we're good.
We're good.
It's an ongoing conversation that needs to continually happen. And this might be step 1, but there's going to be step 2 and step 3 and all the way down the line with families.
And I love, you said something that actually brought up a question for me. When you said the guy was disguised as a good guy, but wasn't, that hit me because, you know, y'all have the cops come up here for MDO. And so my husband is a great guy, I promise. I'm about to put him out. But like,
sorry, Meyer.
You can always tell him when it goes bad. My husband's great,
but I honestly share the same thoughts, and we're getting real. So they have the cops come up here. They have it. So my oldest daughter, she would be like, "There's a police officer," and she'd be so excited. And I was like, "That's not always a good thing," because in our head we go to another place when we think about police officers. We even in church when I walk past a police officer, it's not. My thoughts are not always positive, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
So even on that flip side, it's like, how do we find a way to teach our children? I don't want my kids to think that police officers are bad people. But I also can't have them thinking they're heroes. To me, that doesn't feel safe.
Right.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
And I never... Like, until you said, you know, a good guy, like he was a bad guy disguised as a good guy. I was like, well, that's one way I've never heard it a way that I could break it down for them. Because how do I raise my children in America to teach them how to respond to an authority that will save their life?
Yeah.
But also tell them, but you know, what they're supposed to do. Yeah, it's like I'm teaching you how what your reality is with police officers in America, what it might be. But also, they're supposed to be good too. Like they help you. Like maybe you should call them. Like, because really, that's just our tension in our home. It's like
that's what you live with.
That's what we live with. And so I mean, I love what you said there. And if y'all have any other tips of just raising them, Mason, maybe you can say what you teach your kids. Because
like I have my 6-year-old at home. And she's all about cops. She's cool with the cops here. She loves
it's the cutest thing. Like they literally, she comes up on Wednesdays to our youth and walks around hand in hand with our police officer. He's giving her stickers.
They play hide and go seek.
Yeah,
they're best friends.
Best friends. And I try to tell her that she's like, I asked her, what do you want to do when you grow up? She goes, I want to be a police officer. So because of this guy, you know, what's his name? Jerry, yeah. So, I mean, that's one angle, but then I have my 20-year-old son and my 21-year-old daughter, and they see cops a whole nother way. You know what I'm saying? Because they have interacted with them. Right. So, I mean, I understand how we're going to teach them at this level of little kids, but once they get to like 9, 10, 11, you still have to go stronger. And then that's when 10, 11, 12 is when the talk comes. Well, 12 and 2, look forward. Do not move too fast.
Yeah. So, so backtracking, some people don't know what you mean when you say the talk.
And the talk is like, I mean, I had it with my dad. My dad said he had it with his dad. Yeah. It's like, you know, we actually have to have a talk about what to do when you get pulled over by a police officer. Yeah. There is no, I mean, it happens. Like I had to have it with my son. Yeah. It's just something like birds and the bees. You know what I'm saying? That talk. Yeah. And it has to happen because
you want to save their lives.
It's a life-saving technique.
Death talk.
Hey, can you just give I don't even know what is involved in that talk.
Oh,
like what are you doing?
So basically, if you get pulled over, my dad, I was told, 12 and 10, keep your hands on the wheel. Don't make any slight moves.
Yeah.
If you're reaching for your wallet, say, hey, officer, I'm going to reach for my wallet. Then I pull my wallet out, keep my hand on the steering wheel, and then say, can I get my ID out?
Yeah.
Like, this is like...
You narrate
everything.
So that you don't look like a threat.
Yes.
Because at any moment, we're taught, at any moment you could lose your life.
At any moment.
At any moment. If you're getting frustrated, you keep that in.
You have... And that's the...
polite as you don't know
what... Y'all understand what it's like to have to suppress a feeling.
Yes.
Like, because you didn't do anything.
Especially when you didn't. Like, if you were speeding, you're like, all right, But even if you're speeding, you know, like, okay, instantly you go into that, it's survival mode.
It is.
It's survival mode.
It is.
You go into that. And then to have we had this conversation in college, and to have my white male classmates say, when I get pulled over, I'm like, officer, you're inconveniencing me.
No, and seen it happen.
Yes,
and seen it in action.
Yes,
and seen it in action. Like, for real,
it's
like
crazy.
it is crazy. And I mean, with like, for instance, I'm just going to throw out. I lived in Weatherford. Okay, now everybody knows Weatherford is west of Fort Worth, and I'm not putting it down. I'm just telling you what it is. How my life was. I've been pulled over while walking. I've been.
You're walking too fast.
I was walking and dribbling
You
the
needed
ball,
to slow down.
and I got pulled over. Like, he cut his lights on and everything.
Yeah.
I've seen the Klan firsthand, like on the square. During rodeo seasons, they tell us as Black students, don't be outside after dark. So I mean, that if I'm in Weatherford, I have to tell my kids that at 6th grade. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Hurry up and get home before the rodeo, the rodeo starts. You know what I'm saying? So there's people out in Peaster, Black people in Peaster, Black people in Millsap, all those little country towns that have to still do this because it's so real. Yeah. I've seen crosses burned in people's yards. And this is stuff that you would think, oh man, this is 2019. This was like not too long ago. You know what I'm saying? This was not like 1950s or nothing. Yeah. This was not too long ago. Yeah. And I mean, it's something that I feel that people don't really know until it happens to them, and or see it,
or someone they know,
or someone they know. Exactly.
Someone they know.
Tell me this too, because as we're talking about police officers, I also don't want to paint all police officers in a bad light either, because we've got some officers that attend our church
there's anomalies
that are great people. And I've got a buddy that he's an officer out in Kentucky, and someone literally went outside his home and was drawing pig faces and like writing all this graffiti stuff all outside of his house. How do we show respect, but at the same time, I don't want to put you guys in a spot where you don't feel uncomfortable, where we feel unsafe?
This is that tension.
This is the tension. This is the tension right here.
Because there are good cops. There
are
cops,
and I don't want to discriminate against cops.
Yeah,
if we just say all cops are evil, that's discrimination as well.
I think the hardest thing for us is when we share, and I'm not saying you were doing this, but when we share, the worst thing that I want to see is when we share our experience with a cop, someone's like, not all cops are bad. Okay, nowhere in this 20-page paper did I say all cops are bad. Right. Now, I will tell you, most of my experiences with cops has been bad. So for us to even hear someone say not all cops are bad, we're like, well, great that you had that life experience. I would love, and I told y'all this the other day. Yeah. We just moved out to Mansfield and we've gotten pulled over twice since we moved over there. And I said, rightfully so. Like, I think our tags were out and I forgot our light was out or something the other time. And we got pulled over twice. And both times the experience was phenomenal.
Right.
And we are still shook.
Right.
To this day.
Good cops.
See, I'm gonna say,
and I'm shook. I'm like, whoa, was that real life?
I have a question for you. Yeah. Braylon loves cops.
Loves them.
Braylon wants to be a cop. Mm-hmm. How can you help celebrate that in her life? Because her experience is with good cops.
Mm-hmm. And see, the thing, to answer that question, I allow her to go ahead and keep that. Because she's still a child.
Mm-hmm. Innocence.
Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
But I'm saying, what if she grows up and wants to be a cop?
Oh, that's even better.
That's what I'm saying.
Because if she's in there, she can make a difference while being there.
Right. So is there? I guess this is my question. Is there a way? And it's kind of that same tension, but flipped. Because now we're going. hey, we have people in our church that are going, I'm not prejudiced, I'm not racist, but I have to have this conversation with my kid and make them aware of what's happening. So how then can we go, hey, not all cops are bad.
I'm not going to say all cops are bad, but all cops need better training.
Yes.
There's a culture.
Okay? There's a culture.
All cops need to be retrained. There are good cops. But I think even the good ones can go back and be retrained.
And I think all of us agree there's definitely things that can be put in place, body cameras and all these kinds of things that we all want to see in place, regardless.
Definitely.
Right. But this is what I'm kind of headed with this is, how do we teach them to celebrate the good ones? How do we teach kids that you need to be prepared if this happens, and you need to be ready and expect that it probably will happen. But it's okay if it doesn't happen. It's okay if you do encounter a good cop. If you do encounter a cop that honors you, that is respectful.
It's okay to high five them back.
It's okay to be okay with the fact that they really are here to serve and protect.
I think if there is a good cop and he does his job the right way, us as black people will already know that. We'll get that vibe. I know that's kind of weird to say, but like, I feel like. But are you asking for us black people or white people?
I think it goes back to, honestly, brokenness has to be healed.
Facts.
I think we all carry our own brokenness. Yes. So even the traumatic experiences that I've personally had, that my husband has personally had, that my brother has personally had, that my dad has personally, I have to go back and I have to put that before the throne of God.
Exactly.
Honestly,
that's
right?
Good.
And until that true healing happens there, and that's a process even, just recognizing that that's a process. And once that healing happens, then I can speak to my child in a way that they will still get educated. Because who am I? What kind of mom am I if I don't prepare my child?
Absolutely.
But then I'll also tell them, also, we're black, but we're also Christians. And we believe in forgiveness, and we believe in grace, and we are a light anywhere we go. So even if an officer is wrong to you, you still show Jesus in that moment.
Definitely.
And I think that's the balance. Because I'm not going to I'm not going to say, this is what you might experience, as a black person, but not all cops are bad. My child, I'm hoping that I raise them in a way that they know that not all, I'm not going to make a generalization because that's not very wise. Anyways, it's not very intelligent. But I do want them to know, like, okay, this is what you may experience with the cop, but we're followers of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I think that's the steps, is that healing and that brokenness. And I'm feeling convicted even. Have I went to the Lord and said, Lord, this hurt. Will you heal my heart? Will you change the way I see cops? Because I said it, even in walking in church. Like, I'm walking past and I'm like, like...
Is he going to ask me for my ID?
I know! Literally. And we're laughing, but it's real.
And I'll be real with you guys. The reason I asked this question and really kind of pushed the envelope in our comfortability in this conversation is because some of the questions we got from our students, like we asked, like I was telling you, all races, and actually it was one of our white students that asked me this question, Pastor Leah, why are there not more good cops? And so I don't think it's, yes, maybe our white children aren't having the same conversation about how to be prepared if they'd be pulled over. Like our Hispanic kids may not be having that same conversation. I'll be honest, I don't know what it's like to be white or black in America.
Right.
Okay, but we have white students that are asking me, Pastor Leah, why aren't there more good cops? And so I think there is a flaw in some of the way that things are being perceived, because they are being perceived as all cops are bad. And like you were saying, like that would be almost ignorant for us to classify an entire group of people as being bad.
I think
that's like saying all white people are racist.
Right. I think the flip side of that is, yes, we do need to tell them all of them are bad. I think the biggest thing in all of this is humility and grace. Whatever way we can pull those out is good. And whatever way we can put ourselves in someone else's shoes is good. So with cops, because with cops, we have to help them understand that there is a culture. And I don't know if you guys will agree with this or not. And I experienced this in the Bible. We had a camp or whatever, and a cop came and spoke. And someone raised their hand and called him out and said, are you hurt? Because the way he spoke about people, the way he taught, he was dealing. And then, if you see people getting killed every other day, and I'm not saying that's every cop's reality, your heart is going to harden Whether if you experience, let's get real, if you experience black gangs or something like that, where you know, maybe your buddy gets shot, maybe you watching movies, whatever. I mean, maybe you were in Fort Worth when it was the murder capital of the world. Like maybe all those things were real. Yeah. So there is a culture, I feel this way, this is how I'm perceiving it, of police officers where it's like, your heart is hardened, almost a survival thing. Because if we're honest, even in the hood, there's a culture. Yeah. You take on a culture. Yeah. You take on a mindset. That's true. And so I think if we contribute the things that are happening with the bad officers to a culture that needs to be healed. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like a culture, a brokenness that needs to be healed, even amongst police officers, then we can remove the person. Then we have a different prayer strategy. Yeah. Then you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, it's not, all cops are obviously not bad, but that's not helpful for me. But to tell me, Dela, if you saw people getting killed, if you saw this, what would you look at this situation like? Wouldn't you look at it from a different way?
It's incredible that you can even see it through their eyes of why they might be acting harsher, doing different things. Like that is a humble heart right there.
And that's what we have. That's the only way it changes. Yeah. That's the only way. If they can step in our shoes and see why we clench at church when we walk past them. Right. And then if we can step in their shoes and see why they're on edge, if they're not sleeping at night, they've been scarred. They've, you know.
See each other through the same eyes.
The same eyes and get in their shoes and humble our hearts.
That's real good.
Well, what I love, and I feel your heart here, is saying this isn't just a conversation for white families to have or Hispanic families to have. This is a conversation that all cultures have to have.
Definitely. Yes. Definitely.
That point to, how do we all do this together? This isn't a conversation that's saying, hey, Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. Yes, Black Lives Matter. And yes, that's what's brought everything to the forefront right now. Mm-hmm. But it's a conversation that has to happen in every home that's going, hey, our life matters. Yeah. And because your life matters, my life's going to be better. Yeah. And because your life matters, my life's going to be better. Mm. And when we can do that, that changes the narrative for our entire community. When we start going, hey, this is a conversation that every family has to have.
Reminds me of what we say in church all the time. We're better together. Yeah. You know what? Our church is better because we have all the different demographics there. That's one of the things that I love about it. And while we don't have everything perfect by any means at our church, you know what? I think that's one of the greatest strengths about Christ Church is that we've got all these different groups together.
How do you guys think, like, how can we teach kids to embrace who they are, but also celebrate the differences of others?
I think they do that right now. They embrace the Black culture like no other. Y'all's kids, I feel bad saying that, but other races embrace the Black culture like 110%, as you can see. I think it's really not the kids that's the problem.
It's the parents.
It's the parents. You know what I'm saying? I hate to say it that way,
but I feel like this goes back to what you were saying. Hatred is taught.
Yeah.
So if parents aren't reinforcing that,
exactly,
they're kids.
Right.
So they're either going to be reinforced with what they feel,
exactly,
or they're not. So that's what I'm saying. How do we teach kids to continue? Because if not, they grow up into adults that no longer do.
That's true. That's true.
So kids, they just play. Like, that's the thing. Like, there's no language barrier between kids. There's like, they don't even have to speak the same language. They're like, and they just go and play kickball or soccer or tag or whatever.
You look at the 12 months old in the nursery. Yeah. Like, they're playing together and they don't even talk.
They can't talk. So that's not a barrier for them. But, you know, even more than teaching them, like, there's a difference between things that are taught and things that are caught. Mm-hmm. And when you catch things unintentionally, those aren't things that you're meaning to teach your kid.
Right.
That's when they say a word and you're like, oh man, I must say that a lot because they just said it. Yeah. And so this is one of those things I think we have to teach, like, with intentionality.
Yeah, you have to.
How do you embrace who you are so that you can celebrate others?
But if you're that person, you have to understand that, you know, your kid might listen to rap, might have Black friends. But I'm not gonna, if my daughter has white friends, I'm not gonna be like, oh, there goes the white girl. You know, it's your intention of how you talk. How you talk during that time with them and their friends is gonna show them which way to go. Like, I remember my mom was always a person to be like, where's your friends at? I want you to have everybody. You always hang out with those guys. Hang out with these guys. You know what I'm saying? Just for me to be intentional to be able to do that. I don't know if it was always the right thing for me to do or the wrong thing for me to do, but I feel like I've been so diverse. I've been around so many different people that has helped me a lot.
Yeah, but your mom was intentional about it.
She was intentional about it, yeah. So I think that exactly that, just being intentional and saying, hey, make sure that you're spending time with everybody and not just being with, the people that you do know. Like you were saying about, we are people who pretty much say, hey, come over here with us. Mm-hmm. We have to do that regardless. You know what I'm saying? No matter what color, handicap, or whatever, so.
Yeah. I think intentional is the word too, and just recognizing that we serve an intentional God.
Right.
So he was intentional in the way that he made me.
That's
so
good.
A lot of kids get into this thing too, and I know especially for Black kids where they're like, this is hard being Black. I don't even want to be Black. So that's another conversation a lot of people had to have with Black girls. Yeah. I know a lot of this movement is about Black men, but with Black girls, I have to tell them, like, because and I remember being in kindergarten recognizing, wow, my skin is so much darker than everybody else in this room. I'm a little bit thicker than everybody else in this, just being real. Right. So that's why our library books, they are Black books with Black, because I don't need to teach my girls what white America looks like. That's all around them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But we are intentional. And I think that's with everyone. It's like, we're not hiding the fact, even raising white children, like, why God was so intentional. He made your hair straight. You celebrate that. And wow.
Celebrate it.
Look at your friend, her brown. I love Brendan's little girl's always like, Naomi has the best chocolate skin. Like, she says those things, and they're little, and you celebrate. She does, baby. Isn't it pretty? Like,
and it's genuine when she says it.
It's genuine. And so you pull those, yes, it is. And look how beautiful you are. Anytime there's like, I want to be like this. No, babe. God is so intentional.
Yeah.
Right.
There is a plan for you. And that plan is how you're designed. That's a big part of the plan that God has for your life.
I think it used to be that in previous generations, you would have white people putting down all other races. Mm-hmm. And then there started to be a bit more of a shift into, let's just make everyone equal. Everyone's equal. Mm-hmm. But now I believe there's a new shift that's taking place that is good, that's saying, let's celebrate the differences.
Yes.
Let's not just say, okay, no, we all got to fit inside this box that we're all the same. No, look, we're not the same. God created us different.
Yeah.
Let's embrace and celebrate God's handiwork.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's so good.
Absolutely.
That's so good. I think it all goes back to, we have to teach our kids to be confident in their identity in God.
Mm-hmm.
Who did God make you to be?
Yes.
So
God made you to be you. No one else could be you.
Mm-hmm.
But God made them to be them.
He didn't need another Jeremy. He didn't need another Leah.
Right.
He needed you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when we teach our kids to be confident in who God made them to be, then it becomes okay to celebrate the differences in someone else, because they're not looking at them going, well, God didn't make me that way. Why not? They're going, no, I know who God made me to be.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a huge part in this conversation, is teaching our kids God made you that way on purpose.
Yeah.
God handpicked you. If he could make, the grasshopper that gets eaten by the frog, that gets eaten by the snake, that gets eaten by the whatever, to keep the whole food chain going. I don't think it was by accident that he was like, oh, you get blue eyes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so I think we have to own who we are.
Yep.
So that we can celebrate who everyone else is.
And with that, I know what happens too in a lot of these conversations is white shame. Or it's like, man, now I feel guilty because God did make me white.
Because I was privileged.
I was thinking that.
It's like, I'm privileged, let me hide under the table.
But
No. What we need you to do, gather all your privilege, and we need you to go be a voice.
Yep.
Yeah.
We need you to love like nobody else. We need you to be a bridge, because here's the thing about white privilege that a lot of people don't want to talk about. The thing about white privilege is it takes a white person to talk about white privilege for it to be a real thing. I know now it's a real thing.
That's the only way.
That's the thing,
only way.
right? Like, I know now it's a thing. It's on the news. You can't run from the term white privilege. But for the longest time, it would take a white person standing up and saying, no, guys. And because
he didn't
the other
steal
white,
that. He didn't steal that.
Right.
Okay, well, never mind.
Right. Or just saying, no, guys, like, this is what we're walking in. I'm walking in it. It's XYZ. And then it's almost like, wow, you're a trusted voice. We see you.
Exactly.
We see you because you look like us. We identify with you. And so I know it feels like all this is on the news and everybody's going to be radically changed. I don't know that that's going to be the case in a few weeks. It could just be a moment. Away. I hope it's not, but we feel like it's going to fade away. Everyone who this is really hitting your heart, and God is doing some things and he's moving some things. There's no shame.
No.
Yeah.
Don't act black. We don't need that.
No.
Like we don't want that. No. But we want you to wrap all that privilege up, wrap all that favor up, wrap everything, the call that God has on your life, and use that. Move forward. You're going to be able to do things that we would never be able to do.
It's like whenever Pastor Brennan and you wrote those, and even Josh wrote something, that is big.
Yeah.
Y'all don't understand. Like Kirk Franklin was even talking about that type stuff. Like, to see a white pastor get up and say something about this, that's huge.
To risk everything. I remember I heard Craig Rochelle say something. I'm like, this is huge because he's such a leader in his space. So just seeing you risk that and say.
But you see what she's saying? Risk.
Risk because some people are going to stop following you because of that.
It's a risk for him to do that. Yeah. And it's so major to us.
Yeah.
It's major to us.
Yeah.
I mean, like whenever Tatiana Jefferson happened and Pastor Darius was out there and he talked about that, I was like,
thank you, Lord. Yep. Yeah. And so since we're here, let's talk about silence as a response.
Yeah. Well, this is great because I was actually going to ask you, and I love that you brought it up. Like, is that helpful when we speak out? And you guys have said yes. But, I've often wondered, like, do I have a voice in this?
Do you want my voice?
Do you want my voice?
Like, if I come in and try to talk, is it just like, well, that was cute, Jeremy.
Stick with the camera. Stick with NextGen.
I see that black heart you posted. Hey, no, come on.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel even better about being in this church. Because if I'm taking spiritual advice from somebody that's a different race than me and they don't feel how I feel when I'm outside this building, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yep. Yeah.
If you can't stand up for me out there, why should I be in here listening to you?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's just real. That's as real as I can be about it.
And
because, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just feel that, like I said, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of things that happen. And whenever you voice your opinion in the stature that you have, other people will hear that, like she said.
Yeah.
And it will just ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that silence is painful. Because still to this day, I have friends that want to talk to me about everything else. And, or, I was telling Jen about this too. It's like a lot of times as Black Americans, being Black in America means this is going on. This is the forefront of my home. I'm praying this thing out. We're having these conversations. Oh, but on Monday in corporate America, I got to be in that thing acting like nothing ever happened.
Yep.
And that is painful. And it's the same thing with your relationships. It's like, oh, you want to talk to me about everything else, but because white privilege, you get to continue your life as normal. I am over here praying and going to sleep with nightmares thinking about, are my kids going to live?
Right.
And so that is why silence is painful. Now, we don't need everybody to turn into an activist. At least I don't.
No.
And if you don't speak out about a lot of things, here's what silence looks like. Silence looks like you like all my other pictures on Facebook. I'm just being real. I'm just being real. You like all my other pictures on when me with my cute babies, all the light feathery stuff, right? But the moment I put my heart out there and tell you what I'm experiencing in this moment, you intentionally aren't liking everything that I put that is about this. Because then I have to wonder, are we friends?
Exactly.
Because if this thing gets so real that lives are being taken, like we're walking and,
it's one thing if you're silent on everything. It's one thing if you're selectively being
silent. And not being silent, it's as simple as liking the post where we're not asking.
Okay.
It really is that simple.
Yeah. Okay, but that's an adult. How can that's an adult using their voice? How do we teach kids?
That's not just an adult. Kids, it's well, I'm gonna say.
Well, I'm saying on social media.
Okay,
so if we're talking Facebook and all this.
7 and 8 year olds.
Our 7 and 8 year olds.
9
and 10 year olds.
Yeah.
They have a platform.
Yeah.
How do we teach them
being the
to
ally.
use the platform?
And we teach, and like we were talking about caught and taught. And I remember a quote said, more is caught than taught.
Yeah.
So if they see you standing up and talking with we're talking white right now, if talking with your white friends and saying, man, you know what really hit me? Instead of just sitting around our white privilege table and enjoying our chicken, we're going to talk about this. I'm not going to let this slide. Because everybody is watching the news right now. So if you're gathering with your other white friends and this has not come up, that is a problem. And I guarantee you, if your kids are in the room when you're like, man, that really hurt me when I realized that.
Your kids are ear hustling.
They're always ear hustling. That's how they do.
For real. Especially from 7 to 9, like 9 to 7.
Yes.
They're definitely listening what did mommy say? Yes. You know what I'm saying? They're getting into it.
So when they see you being an ally, they're going to do it.
How important is it to have Black friends come into your home, to spend time, hang with them? Like, you know, because again, I feel if we're saying it's more caught than taught, you know, the more my kids can be around, you know, all these different races, they're going to feel, well, of course this is normal. Like, of course,
exactly.
Why would I be...
Well said. Normal.
Yeah.
It's normal.
Why would I hate this person? Like, that's how Pastor Leah looks. Why would I hate this person? That's how Dela and Naomi look.
Right.
Like, that does... So it's a good thing for us to...
Great thing. I think.
Does it feel forced?
Oh, some of this is gonna feel forced. That goes back to the tension, and it goes back to the humility. It goes back to, like, you know what? We go to Christ Church. We say this is a diverse family, but how much time do a diverse congregation? How much time do we spend with the Black families in our congregation? Okay, done with this. Hey, I see you sit on this third row. It has to be that way. And I'm going to talk to Black people too, because we have an issue in this too.
Yes, we do.
Because when
you were right about that.
I was about to say, Sally, that's a problem. But when our white sisters walk up to us, I'm just being honest, when they decide, you know what, enough of this, my kids need to be around Black kids, I'm going to the third row where I see that Black family sit every Sunday, and I'm going to say, would you like to join our small group?
Exactly.
Would you come over?
Exactly.
And I am asking you this because you are Black, because my heart breaks for what's going on, and I don't know what else to do. So it's humility. And then I need the Black family that sits on the third row to not be like rolling their eyes, mad about the situation. I need us to be like, you know what? That really made me mad that you just pointed me out because we're a Black family. But I feel you. I appreciate you. And let's do this thing together.
Right.
Yeah.
It's intentional is the key word that keeps coming up, because that's all that's going to happen. Yeah. A bunch of awkward stuff is about to go down.
And I love that you just flipped the conversation and said, I want to talk to the Black families too.
Yes.
Right.
Because
we have a part in this.
It's not just a conversation for our white families or our Hispanic families.
No.
This is an ongoing conversation.
What I love that you said it's awkward. It's awkward. All right, so I'm going to ask an awkward question, okay? And this didn't come from a teenager or anything. This is literally coming from me. Okay. What's the best thing to call Black people? Is it African American, Black? Like, because I'm so worried about saying the wrong thing, and I know this sounds ridiculous. No, it is. But like, I don't know if I'm saying, hey, these Black friends of mine. If you're like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. We can say because.
Can I ask you a question? What's wrong with saying Mason and D?
Oh, no. No.
We have names.
Does it have to be that adjective? You know what I'm saying? I don't. Whenever I think of people, I don't think of my white friends. I just say their name. I don't know. Maybe that's
even just referring though to the different communities.
Even as we're talking about, hey, in our church we've got. You know, all the we're describing.
So we're like, do we say people of color?
I don't want to say the wrong thing.
This is a question. It's going to vary by which Black person you ask, that's true. And it's going to vary by experiences. It's going to because African American. I mean, there are some Black people that want to be called Black Americans because the African culture is very different than the Black American culture. It's a completely different culture. Yeah. So, you know, that's, I mean, it is. It just depends on who you ask. Yeah. And sometimes African American sounds racist in itself because you just call me what they put on the checkbox. Yeah. So clearly you don't have any Black friends. You know, like that. So it just depends. I think the heart, if the heart is right. It's about your heart. If the heart is right.
And it's kind of like,
you can tell when the person's talking.
Yes. Hispanics are the same way.
Yes.
You cannot call a Mexican person a Puerto Rican person without a little bit of, well, I'm not Puerto Rican.
Well, that's different, though.
But, I mean, it's pretty much the same.
No, it's not. That's not the same. That's not the same.
It's the same. I mean.
See, this is why.
This is good tension.
Listen, that's not the same.
It's the difference between calling somebody Hispanic and Latino.
That's the difference because I feel weird saying Hispanic.
Latino would be, you're from Latin descent. If you're Hispanic, you probably have more Spaniard descent.
And I was told that Hispanic was more of a white American thing.
Because Spaniards are lighter skinned. If you came from Spain, you're normally lighter.
Yeah. So I try to say Latino, honestly.
What do you like, Leah?
Yeah. I honestly don't care. I would probably say I am more Hispanic. I would probably go with Hispanic.
You would go Hispanic.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But, and I think it's back to that same color. It just depends on the person. And some people aren't going to be offended, I don't think, if you call them Black, African American.
I look for the box that says homeschool because that's a whole nother level of white. Like, that's the albino version of white. I am.
have mercy.
But it goes. I think it all brings it back to not majoring in the minors.
Yeah.
Right. If we get caught up on that,
That's
we're
good.
never going to
We're
be
never
able to
gonna
come
do it.
together to talk about
That's
systematic
true.
racism and talk about the actual changes that need to be made.
Yep,
if
that's
we're
true.
caught up on nitpicking and not trusting
yeah.
people's hearts, we're never going to get to the table where we need to be
Facts.
to actually change the
Yes.
things that are going to save lives, like the
Absolutely.
lives that have been taken.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I guess our next step is this. Like, what is a practical step for somebody watching? Like, what does it mean for a Black person to embrace the differences of white culture and be okay with their kids embracing that? Because they are going to live in that world too. Yeah. And what does it look like for a white family to embrace Black culture? And, I'll be honest, being a Hispanic, I struggled with, and you and I talked about this. Mm-hmm. Do I have a voice in this? Because, while I have experienced prejudice, it's different. Mm-hmm. There is a violent side, but the majority of our prejudice isn't that. Like, I don't know what it means to be Black in America, and I don't know what it means to be white in America. Mm-hmm. So I struggled with, does the Hispanic culture have a voice in this? Because a lot of times through our eyes, it's a white culture versus Black culture scenario. And so I'm trying to figure out, for every parent watching, obviously there's also an Asian side of this and Middle Eastern side of this. There's so many sides to this. Mm-hmm. We don't represent every culture here. Mm-hmm. But what does that practically look like?
I think the first step would be humility. Before you do anything, just pray. Lord, show me my heart. Show me, and this is white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. Show me my heart. Right. Reveal to me anything in me that doesn't look right. Mm-hmm. And then I think the next step after that is education. Mm-hmm. We have had to live our lives thinking and talking and reading about these things. I think everybody, if you don't do anything else, educate yourself on the different terms that are being thrown out there. Look back, look at it, see diagrams. There's so many good videos out there that break it down in a way that's not as intense as the news is showing in this. And something might hit you like, oh, that is real. Educate yourself. And then for me, and my last thing would be just do something.
Do something.
That's good.
Do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to just follow with her because she nailed it. The last one was probably the best one. Do something. Don't just sit there and know that your friend of another color, another race is going through something, and you're just gonna just be silent.
Yeah,
you cannot do that. That's no.
And start at home. That's huge. Start at whatever home looks like. So we talked about this. Home for us is this church. Right.
Yeah.
So we start here because it's great to put a cute Facebook post up, but where are you starting at home with your children? Right. Where are you starting at home with your church? Diversifying your small group. So start in your. Everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves in their home.
Exactly.
That's good.
I think too. I agree with everything you guys just said. The more you can spend time with different cultures, the more you can understand and appreciate their perspective. Mm-hmm. The more I've gotten to spend time with you, it's helped me understand why you have these opinions and thoughts. And it's honestly, it's opened my eyes to stuff that I was blind to. I mean, if I'm just being super honest. And again, once you spend time with someone, you develop a level of trust. Right. And you said this the other day, Dela, and I really appreciate it. You said, if someone came up to you and said, well, Pastor Jeremy or any of these leaders are racist, you can say, no, I've spent time with this person. Like, I can tell you that's not the case.
Exactly.
And the more we can spend time with people, and it starts, like we were saying, inviting people to lunch, going up to them in church. Hey, can we just have a game night? Do you want to come? Our family's going to the movies. And like you said, it's going to feel awkward at first. But we've got to move past the awkwardness because if we don't move past the awkwardness, we're going to stay in this spot.
Yeah.
And none of us want this. All of us agree this can't continue.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got to change. We've got to be better than this. And so in order to be better, we have to move forward. We have to embrace each other. We have to move out of our comfort zones. It's going to get awkward.
Yes.
There's going to be awkward conversations. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to say something. I'm going to do something. But the more we spend time with each other, we know the person's heart. So we know, hey, they didn't say that because they were trying to be offensive.
Right.
They said it because they literally were ignorant
to the situation.
Yep. And it's going to go both ways, because there's going to be things that you might do, I might do, all the way across the board. But when we can spend time with people and see their hearts, then we can truly appreciate and love the person more.
Yeah. I think just thinking through all this and listening, I landed back at one spot. And this is, I think, the best thing parents can teach their kids: to weep with those who weep and celebrate with those who celebrate. And so when we learn that that's what it means to really love our friends, to love our families, to love each other, is, man, when you're hurting, I'm hurting. And when you're winning, I'm winning. And I'm not jealous because you're winning. I'm going to celebrate you winning. But when you're broken, I'm going to sit and be broken with you. Right. And I don't have to understand why you're broken to sit with you in your brokenness.
It's good.
And I think when we can teach our kids that, that's when we're going to raise the next generation to have this empathy for each other, to be able to sit and then be moved by that. Like, your friend's brokenness should move you to action. And that action may just be getting up from your seat and going sitting next to them in their seat. But that's something. And I think that,
and when parents can demonstrate that, when parents can set that example for their kids, it's going to be easier for your kids to do it as well.
Because they're watching.
They're watching.
They're watching.
They're watching everything we do.
Well, hey, Christ Church, we hope that this has been helpful for you guys. We hope that this can jumpstart some healthy conversations in your home. If you have any questions, hey, any of the four of us would love to talk with you, to share our thoughts. You can message us. You can grab us on a Sunday. But we want to continue these conversations as a church because, again, we believe these are healthy conversations. We want to move forward together. We love you guys so much. I'm just going to close this out in prayer if that's all right.
Go for it.
God, I thank you so much that you are a creative God. And when you created this world, you said, I needed lots of people. And you designed each one of us unique, God. You created us perfect, just the way we were supposed to be. You've never made a mistake. And so, Lord, today we celebrate you. And as we celebrate you, God, we're going to be celebrating each other in the way that you made each one of us. Lord, help us to be a reflection of you in our communities. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
We love you guys.